Two. Yeah, obviously I know that I'm muted. Obviously I know that. Obviously I know. What do you think, I'm a fucking idiot? You think I'm a fucking idiot? You don't think I know. Chat, come on. You don't think I know. You don't think I know. I've been doing this 4 goddamn years now. You really don't think I know when I start the stream. Like, please. Yeah, I know I was muted. Obviously I know that. Obviously I know. But I wanted to respond to Jay's comment about my shirt and the top button situation. You know, and I'm just saying, now that I'm finished doing that bit, now that Twink Drew McIntyre was really something else, eh, Sean? Now that I'm finished doing that bit, I'm just saying, these shirts don't look right on me when I wear them normally, you know? When I button it up, like, what is this? I look ridiculous. You know? Even this I find too much. Like, I'm sorry. This is how I operate, okay? This is what's known as the Rob Zone. Cholo Rob only does the top button. Imagine if I rebranded. This is where I operate. Just saw Nakamura win the Royal Rumble after eliminating both Reigns and Cena, and the crowd was ready to riot if he didn't. Well, the sad thing, though, is that push went nowhere. Like, that was leading to a match with AJ Styles at WrestleMania, which I thought would be like a match of the year contender, and it was fine, but it was okay, and Nakamura didn't even win. And that was kind of the end of his big push as a main eventer. Anyway, this is the look for me. This is the look. And I know I was muted. That was 100% intentional. Nakamura was washed when he went to WWE. He had one good match left in him for Sami Zayn, and that was it. But I don't like, he's been there. That was like 5 years ago. He's been there week in, week out. He's still, certainly he's capable of having good matches still. No, I knew that I was muted. So I'm not going to let you gaslight me. Okay? I know when I'm doing a bit. Yeah, the one with Sean, that was when I was at the peak of my whole wrestling fandom. Like, that was 10 years ago when people realized Bryan wasn't coming out and people were like, what the fuck? That's why I think what's happening with Cody is a work right now. What's happening with Cody Rhodes. I think they're trying to artificially recreate that moment, because there's no way there's that stupid that they didn't know what was going to happen. I just feel like it's impossible. I really do feel like it's impossible that they didn't know what was going to happen with Cody if he wins the Royal Rumble. And then he's, by the way, now I'm going to let The Rock main event against Roman instead of me. The whole finish the story thing. Yeah, forget about that. I'm sure, because it's just so insane. I'm sure that it's intentional. Maybe they're that stupid. You want to know something painful? I don't know if I've ever talked about this on here, Sean, or I don't know if you remember watching it. I still think about this because, like, so I started watching WWE again, WrestleMania 28, and Daniel Bryan was one of the guys that I had heard a lot. And in the opening match of WrestleMania 28, a bunch of people want to see the Sheamus versus Daniel Bryan match, and they're capable of having an absolute classic banger. And Sheamus wins in like 18 seconds, and people are just so pissed. And then the next night on Raw, people are like rebelling and chanting for Daniel Bryan the entire night, which leads to this like 2-year storyline for Daniel Bryan, where he eventually 2 years later goes through that whole Royal Rumble thing with Batista and the whole like rebellion there that you're talking about, and then it ends with the 3-way match for the World Championship at WrestleMania. Daniel Bryan finally 2 years gets to the top, submits Batista in the Batista. That's right. Submits Batista in the main event, wins the title. Culmination of this big 2-year storyline, which was a really big mix of like real and booked stuff. Kind of a lot of interesting elements went into that story. And the Batista thing, side note, the Batista thing is crazy because it was right before Guardians of the Galaxy came out. Like, Batista wasn't really known as an actor at that point. He had started to do a few things, but they were expecting him to come back like this big celebrity, which would happen now. If he came back like even a year later, he would have been treated like that. Then he's in Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's in the Bond movie, and he's in all kinds of stuff. Like, this is before Guardians of the Galaxy even came out, so he was still just like... And they brought him back and took Daniel Bryan's spot, and everyone freaked out and booed him out of the building every time he was... but he's such a great performer, he actually turned that into something kind of interesting, because Batista's so great. Yeah, Blade Runner. So I watched, like, I was so into wrestling at that time. Like, I was watching Monday Night Raw every week. I was so invested in this Daniel Bryan story. I was just so into it. I watched hours and hours of WWE content in those 2 years leading to that point, and I ordered WrestleMania on pay-per-view to watch it. And I was so invested in that story, and I just wanted to see Daniel Bryan get that moment in WrestleMania, that big triumphant moment. And I ordered it. I was watching it on pay-per-view, and with like 5 minutes left in the match, before Daniel Bryan submitted Batista, with like 5 minutes to go in the match, my pay-per-view cut out. And it cut out, and it didn't come back. And then I was like, scrolling on Twitter, and I saw like a blurry video of I first saw all the tweets saying what happened, and then a blurry video of the finish of the match. After 2 years, hours and hours of my life invested in that storyline. Hours and hours and hours invested watching that play out and tweeting about it and thinking about it and talking about it with people. And I did not see even though I was there, I did not see live the final moment of triumph when Daniel Bryan tapped out Batista and lifted the 2 belts. Great call by Michael Cole in that moment, actually. I still am sore about that. That's still really frustrating to me. I ended up getting reimbursed for the pay-per-view because that was like Videotron's fault. But I did not see Daniel Bryan tap out Batista until later. That was very disappointing. I had invested a lot of time into watching that story. The idea that Vader didn't get a big run as a mega heel champion is just absurd. I remember hearing a funny Cornette conversation about that as well, where Cornette was one of the ones trying to like promote Vader and push him, and Vince McMahon didn't even want him to be called Vader or Big Van Vader or whatever. He wanted to be the Mastodon. He's going to be the Mastodon. And Cornette's like, he's not the Mastodon, he's fucking Vader. Anyway, I think that's what they're doing with this Cody thing. Either they are that stupid and they thought that The Rock would be able to come in and people would support it, but I think they'll probably adjust unless they're really, really stupid. Sean, one thing you got to go back and watch, talking about Vader, is I can't remember what Starcade it was. I'm sorry, hello Dan, I'm sorry I had to see that. That sounds unpleasant. I don't know which Starcade it was though, Sean or whoever, where the main event is Flair versus Vader. I can't recall what year it was. I think it's Starcade like 91. And it's so great because 93, okay. Because Flair is Ric Flair, and he's so confident. He's always screaming and hooting and hollering and wooing and just on coke and just so cocky and overconfident. And he's going into this match with Vader. And there's these series of segments or vignettes leading up to the match where Mean Gene Okerlund shows up at Flair's house before he's getting ready to go to the match, and there's just none of that. He's just deadly serious. He's not shouting. He's super grave. It looks like he's going to death row. He's saying goodbye to his family, he's never going to see them again. And he's scared. You can tell he's trying to be he's trying to look okay and look like he's okay, but he's scared. You can tell. And it's so great because it uses that Ric Flair character in that way, because he's just none of that. None of the Flair mannerisms are there. And you can tell he's just this man, his life is going to be never the same after this moment, after this match. We don't even know if he's going to survive. That's what it looks like. It's so great. Honestly, it's fantastic. And then you see Vader showing up and he's Vader. He's just this gigantic freak. Just this mean, unstoppable bastard who just wants to hurt and maim everybody. And Flair's just in the limo with Mean Gene, just oh man, it's really good. It's one of my favorite wrestling angles. I mean, we mentioned. Sorry, I'm just eating my apple. Excuse me. We mentioned Drew McIntyre. He's been absolutely amazing the last couple of weeks. I think he deserves a big main event slot. Drew McIntyre is fucking great, and he's been awesome the last couple of weeks. Anyway, a little bit of wrestling chat, a little bit of wrestling talk, wrestling. I know it's not for everybody. It's not for everyone in the community. I know it's not for everyone. We don't need to stick on this too long here. Yeah, Thirsty Housewife. I mean, I don't go to a lot of local stuff, but you're absolutely right that Quebec is historically a hotbed of both wrestling talent and fandom. So there are independent things. It's something that I would like to start getting involved with a little bit more. because those indie wrestling shows are always so fun. Now it's time to switch to basketball, which everyone loves. I can't, Kijiji. I can't. It's this season just sucks. Oh, I'm tired of the. It's hard for Raptors people like us, Kijiji. We've been spoiled, and I think if you were following the team before that, we knew at the time we were being spoiled. But I still think I allowed myself to believe that there was going to be a base level of success. The idea of them going back to just being like bad again was like not really on my radar as much, especially this season. I felt like they were a playoff team this season. They've got good players.
Guy Rob Russo,
even after the trade, like they were looking good for a couple games. Like I was still thinking they were going to be a playoff team. Lucid, thank you for the raid. Hello. Excuse me, Lucid. Thank you. How is the stream today? Welcome in, Raiders. Hello, it's me. It's Rob. Come on in. It's nice to see you. I'm glad that you're here. Let's see more chats. Sound off in the comments. Let's really get this going here. Let's see some more comments and emotes and whatever. All right? We can do better than this. I know it's early. I mean, it's not. It's 12:44 p.m. Eastern. That Siakam trade just made me sad and continues to do so. Yeah, same with me, GMO. I'm going to... man. It's sad. Moving on from the end of an era. Yeah, so this Raptor season has just been bad. It seems like the front office is on team tank given how much injury management and shitty rotations Darko implements. But that's a dangerous game because their pick this year is top 6 protected. So if they get the 7th pick, this season is just going to be wasted. It's just going to be a waste. It's just going to be a waste of everyone's time. Not football trades, basketball trades. Do you know what? Like, if they get 7,000 jump off a hospital building, me too, Kijiji. Let's just kill ourselves if that's what happens. Let's just make a pact. Let's make a suicide pact about this. Okay? What more do we have to live for at that point, you know? As a joke, as a bit. Let's just do that as a little joke. We're making suicide pacts here. That's how things are going over here. It's just a joke, everybody. We're just doing a bit. No need to be concerned. A lot of suicide pacts for something that's not a cult. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah. Draft is such a roll of the dice anyway. Well, that's the thing, is like, that's one thing that those years of success taught me, is that, like, personally, if you're following a sports franchise, I would rather that franchise just be good every year, develop a culture of winning, and not focusing on draft picks, even if you're only getting, if you're getting bounced out of the playoffs in the first round or whatever, you're still giving guys reps. You're setting kind of a culture of winning. I don't know, all the losing, it's depressing. People don't want to be part of that, you know? Just doing suicide pact bits. Classic. Yeah, absolutely. One really bad idea that I'm having right now one really terrible idea that I'm having now is like, maybe I should, and it's, you can see the constant advertising is probably working on me, but I'm like, maybe I should get into a little, just a little minor sports betting. What's the worst that can happen? You know? What's the worst that can happen if I get into a little itty bitty sports betting? You know? I'm starting to have that thought. Just a little flutter of sports betting. How hard can it be? How hard can it be to hit a couple parlays? I did download the DraftKings app. I have yet to ever use it. But I just have it on there. I have it on there in case there's something ever really that appealing. The thing is, I'm not a big gambler. I don't want to get heavily into gambling. That's really the last thing that I want. And I think that is a recipe for disaster. The house always loses. That's that famous saying. Exactly. The cool thing is if you lose, you can recover all your losses by betting again the next day. Yeah. And there's some very nice Italian gentlemen that own a business down the street, and they said they can float me. They said that they could float me, so I don't see what's wrong with that. You know, that's a great investment. Oh man, Amazing Bird Show. Jesus. Yeah. You know, I think I can avoid going down that path. They're so nice and kind. Exactly. It was very helpful. They said, "Oh, you need some extra money to make bets?" Nope, that's no problem. We can float you. What do you need? Well, this is I love this place. These fine, upstanding gentlemen. I think really that I can just bet a little bit. That's how Rob lost his sporting goods store. I'm rewatching The Sopranos, and I'm on that exact storyline right now, the Robert Patrick storyline. I've never watched the whole series through. I've watched a lot of it, but I've never watched the whole series through, and I'm rewatching it now. And I'm on that storyline like right now when he shows up at the card game. This reminds me of the Card House from season 2. By the way, I told all my friends and family about our definitely going to happen season 2 podcast. Everyone is thrilled, and they hope I'll never disappoint them again. No pressure. Okay, good. I'm glad. That sounds good. I love that storyline of The Sopranos. It's so real about how normal people get caught up in very mundane but life-ruining mob scams. I know Tony Soprano is not a good person. In Tony Soprano's defense, though, in this storyline, this guy is like, "Hey, get me into this poker game. I know you're running this executive game. Like, I want in." And Tony knows the guy, and their kids go to the same school, and they're kind of friends. And Tony's like, "No, you don't. You're not coming to the game." He tells him repeatedly, "Don't come. It's not for you. I'm telling you." Like he's very clear, and the guy still shows up. He warns him at every step. Tony floats him $5,000, and then Tony's sleeping for a little bit because it's this all-night game, and he gets into them for another several thousand while Tony's sleeping and says it's okay. And Tony's like, "What the fuck? I fucking told you. I told you." So at that point, you know, it is a little bit on him, but yeah, I think it is true how people get caught up in these kinds of things. You know, my luck's going to turn around, and then you get into really bad situations. Richie, though, oh man, Richie's such a psycho. I love the element because I've never watched this season, and I love the element of we don't know what he's going to do at any given moment. He has this kind of chaos energy, Richie. Anyway, not getting too into The Sopranos, I think I can do a little betting. Just a little. We're talking $20, $30, $40 here and there. If I can turn that into something else, great. If I lose $40, good. I don't need to go immediately try and make that up. You know? I bet the same way I used to go to the strip club with only so much money in my pocket. I think, yeah, you have to. The moment you start being like, I got to go dip into my resources to get back, you're fucked. You're screwed. You know? I just got to go to the cash machine real quick. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're done. Go home. Go home. Hit the showers. I hid Lucid's belt so I can watch your stream. Do you mean like you have to like go somewhere? And you're preventing him from doing that? Good. I agree with that strategy. Start this weekend with some wild Super Bowl bets. I think one bet there. I think it's like Travis Kelce plus or minus 75 yards receiving yards. I think Travis Kelce at over 75 yards in the Super Bowl is a lock. I think that's a lock. But again, I'm not promoting this. I will not, go beyond just a little bit. I think I can spend 20, 30, 40 bucks here and there. I'm confident. I'm very confident that I can do that without making it a big thing. Gambling is good and cool. Lioness is always just really encouraging all my worst impulses. If I ever talk to Mistress of Insanity in the DMs and I'm like, I'm thinking about doing this possibly self-destructive thing, she's like, yes, absolutely. This is why it's good to have friends, okay? This is why it's good to have friends. I'm supposed to do something important today, but I'm kind of thinking about just like sitting around and just scrolling TikTok and just ordering food. And she's like, yep, I think that's a good idea. I used to play a lot of Texas Hold'em tourneys. Jesus Christ, you're like a fucking veteran here. Poker's a different story because it's not gambling, it's a game of skill. That's right. And that's why I don't want to fuck with that, because I don't think I would be any good at it. Yeah, I think Lodane, I'm in the Lodane camp as well. I also used to play a lot of tourneys. You two should be friends. I think you two would be friends. Mistress of Insanity and Lodane. Look at that, we're making connections. We're making connections on here. And Orb Lady asked, when's the Super Bowl? It's on Sunday. And in fact, I'm having some people here to my apartment to watch the Super Bowl.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
It's going to be fun. I'm going to make some chicken
Become
wings.
a big-time gambler. It's only a problem if you're a loser, which you aren't, so it's not.
Easy. Easy. I love it. GMO Radio, thanks for 29 months of Tier 2. Yeah, no problem. I've only gambled once when I was in Vegas. I played blackjack for like an hour, made $10, and the anxiety gave me a tummy ache. Yeah, I mean, I was in Vegas briefly as well, and I just never have been into going to casinos. I don't like it. I find it stressful and weird. I don't like the environment. It's got kind of a dark energy that frightens me. It's kind of I just don't like it. It's just bad vibes, I don't like it. I think I can do a little bit of sports gambling. And if I lose 20, 30, 40 bucks here and there, that's not some kind of back-breaking situation. It's supposed to make boys feel cool, which is like a rancid vibe. There's nothing, if you ever see like the boys going to Vegas, any kind of content that's about that is always just like, ugh, no. As long as you don't have a guy, yeah, then that becomes an issue. That's when you're Harvey Keitel in Bad Lieutenant, shooting a gun into your dashboard of your car when someone hits a home run or whatever. You don't want to be Harvey Keitel in Bad Lieutenant. That's the bad. You've made some bad decisions then when you get to that point. Or Uncut Gems. Let's fucking bet on this shit. There's so many great moments in that movie when you're just like, what are you doing, man? Stop, please stop. You're watching him just going like, please stop. Stop this. Or White Men Can't Jump. There's a lot of that as well. Woody Harrelson in White Men Can't Jump, Billy Hoyle. Just can't help himself. He's got a problem. Yeah, that movie is a nightmare, though, Dane. Like, god damn, it's just a horror show. Vegas just seems like if you weren't in the mob or a cop, you're gonna have a bad time. I guess in theory, if you went with the right attitude, with people that are your friends, and it's kind of almost like a people watching thing, and you're kind of like leaning into the weirdness and the cheesiness of it, I could see it maybe being fun. The buffets, the hotel rooms, with the right attitude and the right group of people, I think it could be maybe enjoyable, like in a once a year kind of thing. The buffets. This is like one of the main things that I would be into, frankly. Not so much the gambling. More just the eating copious, ridiculous amounts of food. Does Canada have a Vegas-like place? I mean, we've got casinos. There's casinos in Quebec. Like there's a casino in Montreal. Like there's a casino. I live like 20 minutes away from a casino, which I never go to. I wouldn't say that there's Vegas-like places. Maybe Niagara Falls. Yeah, I don't think there's anything really comparable though.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist
look at
based
the
in
raids.
Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual,
oh my goodness.
and I found this.
Look at the outstanding support today. Left Flank Vets, thanks for the raid. Hello, it's me, Rob. Welcome, folks. Welcome in. Hey, smash the follow button if you can. Hello, it's me. Hello. There are casinos, yes, but I don't think there's like a large town or city where there's like multiple casinos and motels and that you go here to gamble. I don't think there's that. Rob just hit 10K followers, but he thirsts for more. Onwards to 20K. That's the attitude you got to have. I'm a TikTok influencer now as well, folks. I don't know if you knew this. I have a hit TikTok finally. Finally, the TikTok algorithm gods have smiled on me. The real friendship triangle is Mark, Rob, and Marcus and Lucas. Lucid, excuse me. That is true. Thank you, Adrian. We've already had commentary on the button. In fact, I can tell you right now, folks. We just talked about the real friendship triangle is Rob and Lucid and Marcus. In a couple weeks, on the 23rd, I'm going to hang out in Virginia. I'm going down to Virginia. Good old Langley, Virginia. A little friendship visit to Langley, Virginia. No, not Langley. That's not true. That's not true. But I am going down to Richmond, Virginia, and I am going to see our friend Lucid Fox and our friend Orb Lady, and maybe our friend Marcus, if Marcus can make it. But I am going down for a little visit, a little friendship visit. That's exciting. I might do a stream from down there. I am going to be down there on... Got to see a man about a train. Yeah, no pressure. It would be, but Marcus, it would be great to see you if possible. I am going to be there on Monday the 26th, so I may do a stream from there. We'll see. What are you going to tell the border guard your purpose for the trip is? You're just going to go and hang out. Hang out in Richmond. Marcus can confirm you're in fact not an AI. I think I did a live event. In fact, I should tell people that if you're interested in, and I still have to record an intro so I can turn this into a podcast episode, which I still haven't done. But I should tell you that our event from the other day is available on YouTube. Where, though? That's the question. Where? I thought it was on the CUTV playlist. Perhaps I'm incorrect. Let's take a look, actually. Okay, I got actually a couple things to promote here. I also got a podcast episode. We just did a podcast with Liv Agar. Okay, there's the podcast. Please listen to that because it's a really funny episode with Liv. Okay, and here's the other thing that I wanted to talk about. Where is this? It's local 514. Okay, I see. But please give this a watch as well. Let me just open it up in Firefox here. Look at this. Look, it's me. You want to see proof that I'm not... Look at this.
Knew exactly what was about to happen. And I think this is such an example of the ways that our media...
Does that look like an AI to you?
Promotes this this spectrum of ideas, or this kind of like these two different poles. You got to hear from both sides. And so in this case, you have the extreme violence, and then the somewhat less extreme violence. And this whole commitment to hearing both sides, you see, is completely...
It's not the same shirt, no.
A basic sort of journalistic practice would be to say the other side of that are, pro-Palestine advocates that, in framing the context.
I'm doing stuff in real life now.
Suggesting that, yes, in fact, many people were saying that there shouldn't be a violent response. And just there's this complete abdication of mentioning that at all. I thought that was so jarring.
So please watch this video if you want to, or don't. I'm also going to release the audio on the podcast as well. I'm not AI, okay? I'm not AI. That's not true. I did wear the Canadian tuxedo. That's right. And you know what? I've looked fantastic. That's right, Grom. really impressed that Paris Marx is able to talk to an empty seat anticipating the CGI being inserted later. Okay. You got to dress up for an event like that. Exactly. And I did. I did dress up. And by the way, look who's on the desk. I was happy that Paris and Nashua were okay with this too. See who's on the desk by Paris there? It's our guy.
They are working together on a daily basis with the United Nations, with other international partners, to make sure that as much as possible international aid is going into the Gaza Strip. This is our responsibility according to international humanitarian law, and this is exactly what we are doing.
Then why are so many civilians dying?
We have to ask that to those who are responsible for it, because we know that Hamas holds civilians in harm's way. They've stated that they put them in harm's way because that's their sacrifice to attain their goal, which
V.I. Lenin. Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov. Anyway, that was the video. I'm still going to release that as a podcast thing. So, watch out for that. But if you want to watch it, you can do so there. I'm the walrus. That's right, Doc. I'm the walrus. Oh boy. Okay, so that's what I got going on. What else do we have to talk about? Yeah, getting into gambling. That was my main thing. Phone's ringing, dude. Thank you, Donnie. From 1 minute. Okay, that must be someone from this community. It's 1 minute ago. That's got to be someone trolling. Wait a second. This isn't yet more Canadian citizens exclusively talking about American media politics. We're watching it. It's about Canadian media. We're watching a clip from CTV News. In fact, Americans, stay out of our business. This whole event was about Canadian media. We're watching clips from Canadian media. You can see it right there in the video. CTV News. Americans, you stay out of our, this is Canadian business, actually. You don't get to comment on this. That must be someone from this community. It must be. That must be. I refuse to believe that that's a real person that's not messing around. You're always talking about us, even when you're not. Exactly. Jesus. This is the kind of shit that I have to deal with. Fuck. I'm checking the users in this chat to see if I can find the person that did that. I refuse to believe that that's real. No. Anyway. What else do we got going on? I guess we got to talk about serious business soon. I suppose we got to talk about some serious business. You're against CIA investigations until someone trolls you. Curious. Yeah. When it's in my benefit, then it's good. When it's against me, then it's bad. The Canadian media does talk about U.S. affairs more than it should. Fair to talk about how U.S. policies and right-wing thought are being imported here. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I think everyone around the world, because American politics gets exported as like entertainment, basically, throughout the world, and because America's the hegemon and the things that happen there affect the entire world, to a certain extent, I think you have to pay attention to it. Definitely not when it's at the expense of important local issues. I think that's the thing. We talk about U.S. political affairs a lot, but we don't talk about how the United States is controlling our media and our political affairs enough, which is one thing that I talked about in this event. Talking about how we talk about, foreign influence, foreign interference, when it's China, when it's Russia, when it's Iran, when it's DPRK, wherever. We talk about foreign interference in our politics. But we don't talk about that when we talk about the United States of America, basically like handing down policies which Canada needs to follow. And then we don't talk about it. I would love to help reshape Oklahoma with our propaganda and fake votes. There's nothing that would make me happier. Taking away from important media stories. Important Canadian news like our king having cancer. And again, for anyone that missed me, we paid respects yesterday to King Charles and the announcement that he has cancer. We took a moment of silence. And in case anyone was not around for that, I think it's important now to just take a few moments again today, just to have a little moment of silence to acknowledge and make sure that our love and our thoughts and prayers are going out to King Charles in this time. So if you don't mind, we're just going to take a brief moment of silence just to acknowledge that. And King Charles, this is for you. I hope everything clears up and you're able to live a long and happy life. We're just going to take a moment of silence here.
I was lying on the grass a Sunday morning of last week.
I'm so sorry. Sorry. I had a tab open and I didn't realize. Okay. A great song. Why does this keep happening? It's unbelievable. The tech issues I've been having lately. King Charles won't be seeing sunshine soon. Perhaps if he was doing more butt tanning, whole sunning, maybe he would be in a better position now. Awesome song. Canadian song. Well, it's Americans, stop stealing our culture. Stop stealing. Not only you're stealing our sunshine, you're stealing our culture. That's a Canadian song. Okay, that's for us. That's for us. You don't get to have Len. You have enough. You have enough as it is. I guess before we move on, folks, we do have a couple viewers here today. And if you enjoy this program, I should take a moment, 1 hour into the show, to remind folks that if you do enjoy tuning into this program each and every day, one thing you can do that really helps me out is subscribe to TRRS. It is $4.99 to subscribe. You get all the tiny little images, the best emotes on the whole platform, the best community, followed very closely by the Lucid Fox and the Left Flank Vets community. It's really right up there. I'm a little bit biased on this. The best community, you can support that, you can join that, you can be a part of that, you can support the work that I do on here. I do this show every single day. It's 100% supported by the viewers, the listeners, the chatters.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old
As you know, I must make the little number go
up.
up each and every day.
Just for you, David 79M.
Kevlar Wagon, thanks for the Prime. 6 months of Prime from Kevlar Wagon. Thank you for that as well. We have pre-shows featuring Lodane, which are wonderful. Lodane, I saw that shoulders look as well. Don't think I didn't go and investigate that. We got that. So if you can, please support the show. Please support the community. It really helps a lot. We're going to move on and talk about more stuff, more important stuff. In the next couple minutes, I just thought I would remind people to please, if you can, subscribe, because it really does help a lot. And it's the only way that I'm able to keep doing this show each and every day, is if this little number at the bottom of the screen goes up every single day. It's my blessing and my curse. I must try and mentally will this number into going from a 0 there to a 35 there. Every single day. Every single day I must do this. So if you can, please subscribe or give subs, tips, Patreon, whatever. There's a number of other ways that you can support this show if you can. And if you can, I really appreciate it. Rob Rousophius is what they're calling him. Anyway, what else do we have? What else do we have to do? What else are we talking about here? There is more stuff about like the ongoing strikes. There's more border stuff to get into.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Michelle, thanks for the gifted sub. I very much appreciate that. Mondo Michelle. Another person who I have met IRL who can verify that I'm a real person. And I'm not AI. And I'm not CG. My birthday tomorrow, and I'm giving a gift. That is Bizarro World. But preemptive happy birthday. We're going to have to remember that for tomorrow. Let's just take a collective nap. I am getting more into naps, I gotta say. I've never been much of a napper, but I've just been like so exhausted that I've been getting a little bit more into naps. And honestly, I'm kind of digging it. I'm kind of digging the nap lifestyle. Like on Sunday, Sunday's usually my day. The way my schedule has worked out, Sunday is kind of it's like the day of rest, the traditional day of rest. So it's like a day that I don't have a ton of responsibilities. And this Sunday was nice. I had a nice mix this Sunday of relaxing and being productive. And I got a lot of cleaning done. I cleaned my kids' room. I cleaned my room. I did like my bathroom and the bathroom floors and everything. I did a load of laundry. But interspersed with that was a lot of like relaxing, a lot of couch lying, TikTok scrolling, and a little nap. Took about a little hour and a half nap. And it was pretty good, I gotta say. It was pretty nice. You do wake up a little disoriented, definitely, Old Dutch, but like once you shake that off, like you get that burst of energy. It's nice. Lying down just hits different when you're tired. When being tired is the vibe. It's true. Absolutely. So that was good. It was actually a nice Sunday. I got some stuff done and I relaxed quite a bit. The best is a short cat nap that energizes you. Yeah, I think once you get into like the 2-hour range, then it's too much. Then that's just like a full sleep. It's difficult to recover from that. If you're able to do like a 45 minute to 1 hour max, that's just great stuff. That's just very satisfying stuff. I have such a hard time sleeping in now. I load up on caffeine and pass out before it kicks in. 45 minutes later, the nap is over. I'm ready to fucking go. Yeah, that sounds like a good way to do it. Yeah, I can't sleep in. Like even today, like it's not like I sleep in late in the mornings. Like I gotta get up, I gotta do a bunch of stuff. I gotta bring my kid to school and I got stuff going on, but I woke up at like 6:15 today. When it's like I'm supposed to get up at like 7:30. And I woke up at like barely past 6. And I'm like, what is this? Why? Why? That's kind of frustrating. If my high school allowed for power naps, I would have done a lot better throughout. High school is insane. When you're taking like 15, 16, 17-year-old kids and you try to put them in a learning environment at like fucking 8 in the morning. Yeah, no, that's great. Everyone's really accomplishing a lot. It's so you can get your yoga done first thing. Ugh. Not really been. I got to admit, I've not been following through on that. I've not been following through on the 2 self-improvement things that I said I would do, which is doing more yoga and reading just a couple pages a day. Couple pages a day. Why is this so hard for me? God damn. I had a 7 a.m. class in high school. 8 in the morning. We had to be in high school at 7:15 a.m. Like, what the fuck? No one is learning anything in that situation. Certainly not 15, 16, 17-year-olds. It is an insane thing to put adolescents through. It makes no sense. I should read Blood Meridian again, Jay. I read it like 20 years ago, but not for a long time. Ugh. I don't know if this is happening. I might be seeing tonight Zone of Interest. I might be seeing the new Jonathan Glazer film Zone of Interest tonight, which is going to be heavy. It's going to be some heavy stuff. Can we get a privacy respecting update on the step kid? He's doing well. You said you loaned him a guitar. Yeah, he's doing very well. He's an adult now. Like that's the weird thing for me. You know, I've known him since he was 5 years old, and he's fully just like an adult now. And I gave him I hung out with him the other day. He's doing really well. He's like a really cool dude. I talked to him about music. Like he loves classic rock. Like he loves all the old classic rock bands that I'm into. So I can just talk to him about music like for hours because he's into all that stuff. And has gotten pretty good at guitar too. He plays like he's playing all kinds of good stuff. He's really like working on that. He's doing really well. It's just like it's weird and surreal for me because I've known him since he was really like a little kid. He's not quite an SD head, old Dutch. I've tried to like slowly, subtly push him in that direction. We'll see what I can do on that. Yeah, Glazer is interesting. Doc, Sexy Beast is great. You know what Jonathan Glazer movie is really, it's a good movie, but it's very fucked up, is a Birth. Oh man, it is really messed up. I don't even know if I could recommend it, but like it's messed up. It's unsettling. I haven't seen Under the Skin though, but I might be seeing Zone of Interest tonight. We'll see how that goes. I don't think it's going to be like a fun time or a good time, but it looks like worth seeing anyways, especially given a lot of the things that we like to talk about on here. My son, as you get the aux, he gets the aux, you're hearing Deacon Blues. Love it. That's the goal. That's the dream. That's the absolute dream. Well, I'll report back on that tomorrow. We'll see if that works out tonight. Let's check in on this TikTok. I'm going to have to respond to some of the wild comments that I've been getting on it. Yeah. It's up to 83K views. 18.4K likes. We're finally doing something on TikTok, folks. I got to respond to some of the wild comments I've been getting. What's the Kings and Generals YouTube channel? I don't even know that, Emperor's New Groove. Seeing the Kings and Generals YouTube channel delving into modern politics is giving me a headache. Newest vid, how Xi Jinping destroyed Chinese politics. Come on, guys. Come on. I think there's some interesting conversations to be had about. I would like to speak to someone. Maybe Ben Norton would be a good person to talk to, actually, about what has been going on in China. I know there is some big economic ripples going on right now with some of their big real estate corporations going bankrupt. Like, it's really interesting to see the way they're going to try and weather that kind of storm, the kind of economic storm and I think some of that is self-inflicted too. Some of it is like trying to intentionally decommodify some of these markets, but it's not really something I feel super confident as much as we like to pay attention to China and think about it and talk about it. Not something I feel super confident weighing in on. And Ben Norton actually might be someone that would be fantastic to have him back on the show to get into some of that with us. Hey, Magooms, how's it going? What is up? Ugh. Then we'll give you a 30-minute seminar on the topic, complimentary. Exactly. Like there's no one better to bring on to talk about some of that stuff. Chopping wood at the moment. Oh, that's good. I just got finished with that before I started the stream, actually. I was outside doing a bunch of activities. Chopping wood, hunting, doing all that kind of stuff. Just before I started today, I was just doing that. The China expert guy I had on was there was Carl. There was Carl Jha. There's also Ken Hammond a couple months ago, which I realize now I didn't put on YouTube. It's absurd that I've done some of these really good interviews and I just never put them up on YouTube. That's really something I got to focus on. I got too much shit to do. I got too much shit going on. Yeah, Zone of Interest does look really good. I think I'm going to have to confirm. I may be seeing it tonight. If I do, I'll report back tomorrow. It's my best picture. Oh, you saw it, Carrier Wave? Interesting. It does seem timely, yeah. I'm working on the heating system of a nice house out in the woods. I have a pocket full of pine resin I collected from their trees on my pea breaks. That sounds nice. Cool. Pine resin. What are you going to do with that? What does one do with a pocket full of pine resin? Like the Spin Doctors song. Except instead of kryptonite, it's pine resin. Second stream in a row that Spin Doctors were mentioned, by the way. Get a fire going. Good for your hair and skin, possibly. I don't know. Entomb mosquitoes for future Jurassic Parks. Adds fire damage to your weapon. Caulk your canoe. Spin Doctors are my second concert. That must have been fucking great. Like the mid-90s, I'm guessing. That must have been fantastic. They were huge. I think we underestimate how big the Spin Doctors were. That album was just an absolute monster. They were kind of a one-hit, maybe you could describe them as a one-hit wonder, although they had a couple of other minor hits. But that album, though, because then you could sell a lot of records if you had a big single, even if you were just one big single. It's interesting how they kind of faded into obscurity after when people kind of turned on them. Whereas like Red Hot Chili Peppers, for example, became a big like legacy band. There's an alternate history out there where it was the opposite. where Red Hot Chili Peppers did Blood Sugar Sex Magic and sold a lot of albums there, and we're still seeing like Spin Doctors albums coming out. There's an alternate history where that's what happened. The real two princes are Rob and Jordan. Thank you, Prybars. My first concert was Bad Company and David Lee Roth opened for them. That actually sounds great. You're doing the vomit face, Marty. That sounds fantastic, though. My dad once dragged me to a John Mayer concert and the opener was Owl City. Big Rooms, I got to say, I would probably think that was good. I must admit that I wouldn't hate that. I would not hate that. And Marty, I wanted to say as well, I mentioned this earlier, but Marty, I'm going to be in Richmond on the 24th of February. I know that's far away. I don't know what you want to do with that information. Maybe nothing at all. I'm simply putting it out there that I will be in Richmond on that date and for a few days after. Yeah, that's what I thought, Marty. But it was actually Orb Lady that told me to mention it to you, just to mention it. I don't know. But I will be sad and disappointed if you don't show up and just like, I'm so sorry, Mr. 4-hour drive. Oh, 4 hours. Oh no. Ooh, oh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me to think that you might want to come and no, I'm just joking, man. Start guilt tripping you. $19-hour drive or $500 plane ticket. That's pushing it. That's pushing it, Lodane. Okay, Sean, that sounds great. I was mad about how good Coldplay was. This was after X and Y came out, so they still did a bunch of Russia Blood stuff. I liked X and Y, the Coldplay album. I thought it was really good, actually. Plus Richard Ashcroft opened and did several songs from Urban Hymns. That sounds like a really good concert, actually. I'm on a 1,300-mile drive right now from Magooms. That's a big drive. A long drive. Does the train even run from Montreal to NYC anymore? I believe it does. Yeah, I do think you can travel by rail. It's not cheap or convenient, which is absurd. The idea that there's not a high, like to say nothing of Canada, like the high-speed rail loop between Windsor and Quebec City. The idea that there's not a high-speed rail loop to go down to fucking New York City and Philadelphia and Boston and a couple of other major cities is like insane. Like, what are we doing in our society? What are we even doing? Windsor is the city next to Detroit. That's right, yeah. The train from Montreal to NYC is 10 hours. Like, what an embarrassment. Failed society. Failed society. Failed culture. We can't build anything. We can't do shit. Need one to California as well. Absolutely. There should be an entire network. There should be an entire network of high-speed rail connecting all of us. It's a 6.5-hour drive, so the train is like 50% slower and probably more expensive than just filling up your tank full of gas. This is just insane. It's insane that we don't have this in our wealthy Western society. It is ludicrous that we don't have this. They're finally starting another downtown subway line in Toronto. Expected completion 2031, so add 10 years to that. Add 10 years and maybe just like, we might just not finish it. Like the fucking whole Eglinton disaster. Like, isn't the whole Eglinton project, isn't it kind of like stalled? Like, we don't know what we're doing with this. Like, they don't even know. Like, what the fuck? It's so insane. We don't know. We don't know what's happening with that. Sorry. How many have we spent on that? Don't look into it, actually. Just don't look into this. We tried, okay? That's the most important part with infrastructure projects. We tried. We did our best. We did our best. It's the thought that counts. We're so bad at infrastructure with the one exception of bike lanes in Montreal. Well, that's the amazing thing, is that we elected a transit green progressive mayor who's probably better than anyone else, and they're fucking giving money to cops and cutting transit. She campaigned on like, I'm the transit person. We're going to expand transit. And they're cutting transit and giving that money to the police, which she explicitly said she would not do. Yeah, and they're putting $1 billion into fixing the Olympic Stadium roof. Losers always whine about their best. Just look at that recent U.S. package with the billions going to Israel, Ukraine, etc. People have no idea how good they could have had it infrastructure-wise, just overall quality of life changes. Yeah, and it's like when our big infrastructure bill, it's like, a couple $100 billion over 10 years. Military budget, like close to $1 billion every year. The military budget's close to $1 billion every year, which is just going all to the weapons contractors. And then they have more, because that's not enough. When they need to fund Ukraine further, kick the can down the road further to get more people killed there, we found another couple billion. When we want to fund more bombs being dropped on little kids in Gaza, well, we found another couple billion for that. And all that military aid, it's all aid going to Israel and Ukraine, and they can only spend that on weapons. So it's basically just printing money and handing it to the weapons contractors. But first, there's a middleman. There's like an intermediary. They give it to Israel, and then they give it to the weapons manufacturers. They give it to Ukraine, and then they give it to the weapons manufacturers. These are like private companies in all but name. They print money and hand it right to these companies. But they do this through an intermediary. Like Israel, like Ukraine, like Taiwan, or wherever else. Insane. Nothing about our society makes sense. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. It's farcical. It's preposterous. That's why we talk about this stuff every day. That's why we talk about this stuff every day on here, because we all agree, I think, that with all these issues are not going away, that there's no one in any kind of our major political parties that are meaningfully addressing these things. That's why I like to do this show. That's why I like to have this community. That's why I'm trying to start do more in real life things to get people together, like in real life also. But man, is it ever painful to watch this stuff each and every day. Next meetup at the casino. It does make sense to those benefiting. It's a great deal for them, for sure. I can see why they're so devoted to keeping this in place. It's a great situation for them. No, I think we'll keep it like this, actually. No, I feel quite comfortable. The infinite money printer looks great for those in charge. Exactly. Yeah. No, it's a good system. It makes sense. I'm doing very well. In fact, Doc, I would love to do a Dallas meetup. I think that would be fantastic. I would love to go to the JFK Assassination Museum with all of you, or some of you. Yeah, and talking about the whole Olympic Stadium, like I think that's one of the things about Olympic Stadium as well, is that where they built that at the time they were planning on expanding the city like all the way out there. Like they thought it was going to continue, the development was going to continue, and that like there would be a big like residential neighborhoods and infrastructure projects that were going on there, but like it just never worked out. So it's just so far. It's never really made sense as a venue. It didn't make sense as a sport venue or a baseball venue. Yeah, it's way to the east of the city, of like the downtown core. Like it's silly with the history of the baseball, of the Expos and everything, that we don't have a baseball team in this town anymore. It was very popular. People loved the Expos. No, I mean, it's not that it's that hard to get to, but my point is though that there's not this big like developed area around there. Like that's my point, right? It's not that it's impossible to get there. But it's not like you leave the stadium and you're in this really cool like neighborhood with stuff going on and everything like that. It's just like you leave the stadium and it's like, I got to find the train station so I can get back to wherever I'm staying or get back to wherever. When they built the stadium, they were anticipating that the city was going to develop all the way out there. So you would leave and there would be like stuff, but there's really nothing. There's the botanical gardens. Like those are cool. There's some cool stuff to do out there. But there's not like development that extends from the downtown core like all the way out there. It's getting nicer. We were at the Biodome. Yeah, it's cool. Like the Biodome is cool. The botanical gardens are cool. Like it's not that there's not good stuff out there, but like it's around. You know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, maybe we should get into some kind of video content now. This has been a lot of chit-chatting. We're 90 minutes of chit-chatting here, which has been enjoyable, but I think maybe it's time to wheel in the video machine, VCR, whatever it is. I really hope that comment about Canadians talking about America was someone trolling me from this community. I really hope it was. I'm actually mad about that. If that was someone being sincere, even if it is just a troll, I am actually still kind of mad, frankly. So let's keep talking about this. So here's the first thing. I think this has been one kind of funny phenomenon that's been going on with them desperately trying to... Should we put in the papers that you're mad? Yes, actually. Yes. I know it's not cool to admit when you're mad about something. If that's a sincere comment, I am genuinely mad about it. One thing that I've found very funny over the last couple of days is them, like the people at the Pentagon, the security state, the US government, just still insisting over and over, no, we're not trying to expand this. We're not at war with the Houthis. We're not expanding this. This is not turning into a regional war, as it's like very, very clearly expanding and turning into a regional war. I think it's when very funny. It's almost like a Baghdad Bob kind of moment. Like, oh, nothing to see here with all this shit exploding in the background. Naked Gun reference. It's been kind of one of those situations with the U.S. government over the last couple of days. So they're still playing this game. And this has been my question: is like how much longer are these people that are trying not to expand this going to be in charge? Is there a possibility that there's going to be a sect of even more demonic, insane people taking over very shortly that are going to be open and honest about expanding it? Here's them trying to do that spin again.
Our focus when it comes to striking Houthi targets is to disrupt and degrade their capabilities. We don't seek an escalation with the Houthis. We're not at war with the Houthis. We're not seeking to go to war with the Houthis. But if they continue the attacks, we will continue to disrupt and degrade their capabilities. Our focus
We're not expanding. We're not at war. We're simply disrupting and degrading their capabilities with bombing attacks. And if they don't stop, even though they've said very clearly that they aren't going to stop, as many people that are familiar with kind of the Yemen and Ansar Allah and the Houthis or whatever you want to refer to them as, know fully well that this has been a victory for them. They've been very clear about the fact that they're not going to stop. They've been very clear about what is going to make them to stop, which is a cessation of the genocide in Gaza, which has only escalated. It's only escalated since the ICJ ruling, which is just insane in and of itself. Not only did America and Canada respond to the ICJ ruling by cutting funding to UNRWA and disrupting and destroying the ability of UNRWA to deliver humanitarian aid into Gaza, but the violence has only continued. They've killed like thousands of people still since that ruling. It seems like they've been even more vicious since that time. And now they're starting to bomb the last safe space that Palestinians that have been spending 3 months living under these conditions have escaped to. Cutting UNRWA funding is psychotically cruel. And the timing is not a coincidence. The timing of that is not a coincidence. Doing so the day of that ruling, that sends a very, very clear message. You know, and it's sick. Yeah, it's sick. It's like it is psychotic. Low Tade, Jesus. Oh boy. Oof. Okay. Anyway, there is another Al Jazeera little segment here, 30 minutes. I don't know what's going on today, Sean. I don't know. I guess I contributed to it as well today. Maybe that's my own fault. There is a 30-minute Al Jazeera segment about this. Could today's global conflicts bring a third world war closer? So let's maybe take a look at this. This is just from like a few days ago, 5 days ago. There's been an increase in strikes since that time, but still overall the same kind of trajectory. I'll just maybe remind folks one more time. An hour and a half into this thing, I got to go in about an hour. I got to go about another hour and a half to go in the stream. If you can, please subscribe to TRRS though. We got 200 viewers, 3 subs down, which is fantastic. But if you want to support this program, if you want to support this show, join the community, support the community, please, if you can, subscribe to the show, gift subs, bits, tips, Patreon, whatever it is, just the tip, whatever you want to do. That was the egg licking was a one-time deal. That was a one-time deal, okay? So if you can, folks, please subscribe to this program. It really helps a lot. I appreciate it a lot.
You can count on me.
It supports
You're
the
gonna have good
community.
old Rob
It
to,
supports the
talk
work
you
that I
through
do
all
on
this.
here. Thanks, Duck, Not So Strange, for gifting a sub to new community member, Just the Tip. You have any other takers? Before we move on, we're going to watch this 30-minute segment from Al Jazeera about this subject. If you've got anyone else that wants to support this community.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Anon, for 2 gifted subs. That's very kind of you, Anon. Thank you. What if I do this?
You can
What about
count
this?
on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
What about if I did this? Anything? Is that working for anybody? I got to do what I got to do here. I don't know. Is that working for anybody? That's what I thought. Whatever, it doesn't even affect me. It rolls right off my back. I don't even care. Let's watch this segment from Al Jazeera. Could today's global... literally nothing. Wow, that's... sure is something else. Could today's global conflicts bring a third world war closer? Let's watch this segment from Al Jazeera.
Wars are raging around the world. Many are pitting East against West, with both supplying arms to countries they support. The United Nations has been accused of weakness, paralysed by vetoes held by the major powers. So could these global conflicts turn into a third world war? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Tom McRae. A global conflict has been avoided since 1945 and the end of World War II, and its horrors of the Holocaust and atomic bombs dropped on Japan by the US. Now, much of today's international political architecture, such as the United Nations, stems from the aftermath formed by world leaders determined such a disaster would never happen again. Yet conditions comparable to those in World War II are being suffered by many people today, such as in Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, Yemen, Myanmar and Central Africa, to mention but a few. And in recent years, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed or injured in Syria, Libya, Iraq and Afghanistan as a result of foreign military action, often with East and West backing different sides. But up until now, there's been no outright fighting between Russia or China and the US. But serious conflicts or standoffs between their allies are ongoing. United Nations peacemaking efforts have
I'm going to the US to visit my best friend Cory Booker. That's right.
In the Security Council. So is there a real danger of such global conflict erupting into a third world war? We'll be asking our guest this question and many more in just a few moments. But first, Imogen Kimber reports on where the current flashpoints are.
Carnage and destruction on an unprecedented scale in Gaza, with 100,000 people either dead or injured. President Joe Biden said from the outset of Israel's war on Gaza, the US did not want conflict to escalate to other countries, despite sending weapons and warships. Yet its impact is being felt across the region, with concerns growing that it could spread.
This is an incredibly volatile time in the Middle East.
Whose fault is that, Anthony?
I would argue that we have not seen a situation as dangerous as the one we're facing now across the region.
Whose fault is that, sir?
At least 1973, and arguably even before that.
Linked to Israel's Gaza war in neighbouring Jordan, 3 US soldiers were killed in a drone strike, blamed on an Iranian-backed militia in Iraq. that's still recovering from the catastrophic war launched by the West 21 years ago. And in southern Lebanon, the Iranian-backed armed group Hezbollah quickly joined the fight, with ongoing exchanges of fire with Israeli forces across the border. Another group allied to Iran, the Houthis in Yemen, is attacking Western cargo ships, saying it's a retaliation for Israel's war on Gaza and to support the Palestinians. The US and UK have begun bombing Yemen in response.
The US, together with the UK and some of their other allies, have violated and
Problematic
trampled
fave.
on all conceivable norms of international law, including the UN Security Council resolution, which only called for protecting commercial navigation. Nobody authorized anyone to bomb Yemen.
In Europe, as NATO and Western states continue to send weapons and financial support to Ukraine 2 years after Russia's invasion, there are fears the conflict could spread across the continent. Countries in Europe have been increasing their military preparedness, with long-time neutral Finland joining NATO and neutral Sweden close to doing the same.
Oh, not Finland and Sweden.
Moving
No,
east,
it's terrifying.
The US and China have both been carrying out military exercises in the South China Sea, with intensifying focus on Taiwan, that Beijing claims as part of its territory, to be taken by force if necessary.
It is part of its territory.
And there is rising tension on the Korean
part of
peninsula,
China.
with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un saying unification is no longer a possibility. South Korea and Japan are strengthening their military forces, while Russia has become a stronger ally of Pyongyang since its invasion of Ukraine. Conflicts are also
Do not
raging
Google
elsewhere,
the Finnish Air
with
Force
war in
logo.
Sudan and volatility
NATO really not
in South
beating the
Sudan.
Nazi allegations.
That follows the war in neighbouring Ethiopia's Tigray region, in which hundreds of thousands of people were killed and where tensions remain high. With more confrontations pitting East directly against West, many are now questioning whether the world is sliding towards a wider global conflict.
It does kind of sound like
along with
one
the
side is
horror
escalating
that
this.
would bring. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Hey, Pelicans.
Okay, let's bring in our guest now. In New York is Chris Hedges, former Middle East bureau chief of the New York Times and a Pulitzer Prize winner. In Birmingham, UK, Scott Lucas is a professor at University College Dublin and edits EA Worldview that provides news and analysis through those facing conflict, deprivation and change.
That's right, Spooky.
In Beijing, Huiyao Henry Huang is the founder and president of the Centre for China and Globalization and a former councillor to China's State Council, which is China's cabinet. Thank you very much for your time and for joining us here on Inside Story. If we could start broadly and then focus in, drill down on the specific conflicts that are happening around the world at this point in time. Chris, if I can begin with you. What do you make of the
South Korea
premise that
military
we're
just means
sliding
US, same with
inevitably
Ukraine.
towards World War III?
I don't know that anything is inevitable, but these conflicts are very dangerous because whatever the intentions, and I don't think that Iran, Hezbollah, or the United States seek a regional conflict by exacerbating tensions within the regions through strikes and counterstrikes, whether that's in Yemen, whether that's in Iraq, whether that's in southern Lebanon, you propel yourself closer and closer to a conflict. I think what concerns me as an American most is that the inner circle around Joe Biden, that's Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and Brett McGurk, have no real understanding of the Middle East. In the case of Blinken, he sees the Middle East through the lens of the Netanyahu government. None of them speak Arabic. None of them are particularly familiar with the culture or the history or even the grievances. That's when we saw Blinken essentially go around and try and lobby Arab leaders to take Palestinian refugees from Gaza. It just shows how tone deaf he is. All of these people are strong militarists. Sullivan, of course, stoking the tensions primarily with China. But Biden himself, who was calling for war with Iraq 5 years before the U.S. invaded. And that's what worries me the most. It's this kind of incompetence, historical, linguistic, cultural, I would say even political illiteracy, and then the ability to bypass Congress to not only funnel weapons, billions in weapons to sustain the genocide in Gaza, but carry out strikes, whether that's in Yemen or Iraq or anywhere else, essentially without consulting Congress. So from an American perspective, this is a very dangerous development. within the State Department and the intelligence community. Many people consider what these three people around Biden are doing as very ill-advised and very dangerous. So this incompetence is something that worries me tremendously, especially the longer that the conflict in Gaza continues, and I don't see any signs within the Biden administration that they have any intention
the branded administration.
of stopping it. Indeed, they spend most of their time in Jerusalem and Riyadh.
Yeah, indeed. We heard Blinken in the story we played at the beginning of this show basically say that the world is more dangerous now than in any time in the last 50 years. Scott, do you believe those words? Do you see it
Whose fault is that, sir?
I don't like to use terms like World War III or even Cold War 2.0 for two reasons. The first is it leads to exaggeration, which means we miss looking at each case on an individual basis. And secondly,
neither Serbia, Russia, Austria-Hungary, nor Germany are seeking a wider war in Europe. It's weird how neither America nor Iran are seeking wider regional conflicts, and yet we still seem to be marching towards that. It's interesting. You would think with both sides not seeking it, there would be able to be some kind of a compromise, but apparently not.
It leads to sweeping generalizations to blame a particular group, like Chris has just done. What I would point you to is to say, look, we have had a series of conflicts around the world for some time, but the stakes have been raised in the past few years, probably by three catalysts. The first is, before the current Israel-Gaza conflict, we saw the bloody repression
Our brows are
of
deeply
movements
furrowed,
across
that's
the
right.
Middle East, especially in Syria, where the Assad regime, backed by Russia, killed hundreds of thousands of people. Secondly, we saw the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. And then, of course, we had Hamas's mass killings in Israel, followed by Israel's mass killings that continue on a daily basis, killing tens of thousands in Gaza. And each of those flashpoints, each of those catalysts can be used by various actors, not just the US, can be used by Russia, can be used by China, can be used by someone else to push their local power plays. And when you have an intersection of different conflicts, let's say between Israel, Gaza, Syria, Iran, and Iraq, then you have the possibility that a particular conflict can expand into the region and then beyond.
Right. Henry, I'd like to get the sense of what it is like in China. It feels like in the West there has been, in recent days, more and more talk of this concept of World War III being closer than ever before. Is there any talk or concern within China of this?
Well, I think absolutely. I think that, even though this just seems a bit far from China, but absolutely it's really affected China also, because China, being the largest trading nation in the world, I mean, we have actually heavily dependent on those traffic and those, ocean shipping and all those import-export. So what I see is the world is really getting more dangerous. I agree. I mean, the world is getting more dangerous and more risky. And there's two levels of that. First, I think there's all those regional issues because we are getting into a multipolar world, and then there's no multipolar world system to sustain that. So we see that if there's no consensus, then there's a lot of regional conflicts, spread around. I mean, because Russian war in Ukraine is one example, but also we have seen this Palestinian-Israel conflict, which is very deadly, and it spill over. In fact, is getting loom and large and affecting all the big countries. I mean, U.S., UK jumped in already, and then Iran could fight back, and then that could spill over even more countries, and then you see the whole world disrupted, trade and everything. So the second, I think, is most important is there's no trust between the major powers, and the P5 member country of the UN basically is not really working together, and that's really, I think, probably can be one of the main reasons that the world can't get its act together to really maintain the stability and order. So I think we have to really think about how we can maintain this peace. I mean, like China suggests that, like Israel-Palestinian conflict, let's have a War Peace Summit, have a high-level summit, and really let's go come to the table and talk about that. Rather than, we see only one country back and forth, and that's really not help. So we need to really think hard and find a solution this going crisis.
The adults in the room.
I don't think many people would disagree that trust is probably at its lowest point ever between the major players.
Whose fault is that? That's the problem.
Chris, if I can go back to you, you're obviously
especially when you're talking about China, you have one side of that conflict that's like repeatedly reaching out and trying to be like, let's work together, let's stop the antagonism, let's stop the escalation. Let's work together to confront these challenges. And you have the other side of that being like, you sent a balloon over our country. We have to blow it up with a missile. You have secret police stations. You're controlling our government. And you have them just being like, can we just make some deals and we can help you build some stuff maybe? Like, let's just have that. Why don't we just do that? And you have one side pissing and shitting its pants and accusing them of like every single thing you can imagine. You're doing genocide. By the way, don't pay attention to the genocide that we're doing. That's actually not genocide. That's actually good. You know what I mean? So yeah, the trust is at an all-time low. Okay, yeah, sure, but like, why is that? What's the elephant in the room here in this conversation? But the balloons. Or like Cinnamon Challenge was pointing out as well, fears are growing now that NATO support for Ukraine will destroy Europe. Could have used this attitude a few decades ago. Like, yeah, like why? Because of the war in Ukraine. Like that's leading to all these, okay, but why did that happen? That never had to happen. Maybe we should have had this attitude for a while when that was clearly on the table. And it was being clearly communicated, if you continue fucking around here, there's going to be a war. And what did we do? We continued fucking around. And now we're like, this conflict is potentially might expand. And it's like, well, yeah, well, maybe we should have thought about that. Doing anti-Semitism, if you say Israel is doing a genocide. You know, it's someone mentioned, like at the beginning of this video, let me see, I'm scrolling up, I'm trying to find the comment. I'm trying to find the comment. I don't know if... one who reads said, so much horror visited upon the world by white people. That's the kind of thing when we talk about like anti-Semitism and we talk about like, oh, the Houthis are anti-Semitic. Hamas, they're anti-Semitic. They hate Jews. And I don't think that's true. I think a lot of these, like Hamas in particular, takes pains to point out the differences between Israel and like the actual Jewish religion. But like we've talked about as well, not that it's okay, but if you're part of that, if you're from that region and the only thing you know about Jewish people is Israel, who repeatedly commits these horrible crimes and explicitly says, this is what Israel explicitly says, we're doing this because we're Jewish people. This is because we're defending our Jewish values. This is like, we're defending Jewish people when we massacre 10,000 little kids. You know, they explicitly say that. And I think that has like a somewhat understandable, it doesn't mean it's okay, but a somewhat understandable situation when people grow up in that region and that's their only exposure to Jewish people is to have fucked up attitudes about what Jewish people are about. And that's the thing, it's like because of anti-Semitism and how loaded that concept is and the Holocaust and all this stuff, we take it as like, oh, they're anti-Semitic, that's so horrible. At the same time, it's like if anyone that's grown up in the global south, whether it's in Central and South America or, you know, Southeast Asia or Africa, and they don't like white people because of the history of colonization, because their only exposure to white people has been through the history of colonization and exploitation, and they hate white people, you know what I'm going to say as a white person? I get it. You know? I get it. That doesn't mean that it's good. It doesn't mean that it's good that that's the attitude that they have, but I fucking understand if you've grown up in that environment and that's your attitude. I also understand if you're a black person or an indigenous person in Canada or the United States and you don't like white people because the history of fucking the way that your community has been treated by white people. It's like, yeah, that sucks, but I get it. What has to change is our attitude towards how we go promote our values in the world, and then maybe people's attitudes will change, you know? You know, I get it. It doesn't mean that it's okay, but I think it's an understandable attitude to have if you've grown up in that context. You can get fined or arrested in Germany if you say Israel's committing genocide because it relativizes the Holocaust. Is in Israel as well. They've made it illegal to do like October 7th denialism. Now when you just point out basic facts about October 7th, like about the Hannibal Directive, military versus civilian targets, you can get jail time now in Israel for this. This is it, Carrie Raven. This is how Israel harms Jewish people. Like we talked about, Finkelstein makes this point eloquently, Old Dutch said. This is exactly how Zionism and Israel hurts Jewish people. They literally harm Jewish people by engaging in these kind of crimes with the flag of the Star of David waving and explicitly saying that it has to do with Jewish values. You know, that's what it doesn't mean that we need to say that like it's okay that people have these beliefs, but it's like I understand as a white person, if someone that has grown up with the specter of colonization and imperialism destabilizing their society, you know, leading to just such unprecedented and horrific cruelty and exploitation, and their reaction is that they don't like white people, I get it. You know, I get it. I understand.
President Biden and the US's handling of what has happened in Gaza. Since October the 7th, almost on a daily basis, they've said that they don't want this war to escalate, to broaden out into a regional war. But since then, we have seen it creep to more and more countries, whether it's Yemen or Lebanon, into other countries like that. What they are saying is very different from what they are doing, isn't it?
Yeah, because the war could not be sustained without U.S. munitions, which have come in by the tens of thousands. The tank shells, the artillery shells, everything else is produced in the United States. They've, of course, vetoed the ceasefire resolution. So on the one hand, they want it contained. On the other hand, they fuel the conflict. And that, of course, is a contradiction in terms of goals. If you want to mitigate the possibilities of a regional conflict, you have to end the genocide that Israel is carrying out in Gaza. And I would say that, you know, the Arab regimes, countries like Egypt in particular, they don't want to see this escalate. But of course, within the street, I just came back from the Middle East, in fact, was in Doha visiting Al Jazeera, the anger is quite widespread and quite palpable. So yes, I blame the Biden administration for not using its leverage. It has the leverage, but because Congress is bought and paid for by the Israel lobby, it's not going to use it. There's a political cost that Biden doesn't want to pay. And so we're watching a situation now where there's widespread famine, 500,000 Palestinians are at starvation level, infectious diseases
Maybe
are
one day I
spreading,
can,
Palestinians are eating grass, 90%
That's why I need
of
to
them
get the think
are
tank going.
unhoused, many living in the open under the rain of the winter rains. I mean, this is just staggering in terms of the catastrophe that has been the humanitarian catastrophe that has been orchestrated, and it quite rightly triggers a reaction. Remember, Yemen itself suffered like this. 400,000, I think, Yemenis died during the war and siege led by Saudi Arabia with the full
insane
backing of the United States. So, of course, they're reacting because they understand.
How do you look at images like that?
I really think.
How do you look at images of the destruction and be like, oh yeah, let's talk about Israel's war on Hamas. Let's talk about Israel's war on Hamas. Do you know Hamas sometimes launches rockets into Tel Aviv? Oh no, that's so scary. How do you live like that? And then you look at these images with zero cognitive dissonance. And you talk about Israel's war on Hamas. All of those buildings house Hamas. That's right. Jesus. It's just staggering, the level of destruction.
So, of course, they're reacting because they understand. But yes, I really think the blame lies at this moment with Washington for not intervening and using the power that it has to end this conflict.
Like, that's the thing. Like, and I agree, Dane. I think Chris Hedges has a lot of valuable insight on some of these things, but the blame lies on Washington for not intervening. But it's not just that they're not intervening, though. To be clear, they're funding it and subsidizing it and giving them full cover to do whatever they want. Like, yeah, they should intervene. That's I agree. But like, it's a little, their support for this genocide goes a little bit further beyond that. It's not like, oh, what can we do? It's, if only we should intervene. Yeah, they're intervening on the side of Israel. Like, that's what they're doing. Like, I think we should be clear about that.
Bring forth a ceasefire or a prolonged pause.
Okay, Scott, is this all the United States' fault, the prolonged killing on a daily basis of Palestinians in Gaza, because they have, I guess, backed
and vetoed UN resolutions
Israel? And do you think that the conflict in Gaza and in the Middle East at this point in time is the one that's most likely
slashing aid to UNRWA
further and potentially escalate to become a world war?
I agree with Chris. In a sense, and I've been a scathing critic of American actions in recent months because they're not using leverage to try to pull the Israelis back. But one of the problems we have in a lot of commentary is it's only about the United States. It needs to be widened out. And let me give you two examples with Israel and Gaza. The first is that the U.S., along with much of the international community, did try to hold the Netanyahu war cabinet back from a ground offensive. They tried to hold them back from an expansive bombing campaign after October 7th. And at the end of the day, you have to say that the agency, the decision to go out with that all-out campaign, that mass killing inside Gaza, is with the Israeli war cabinet. It's not that the U.S. told them to do so. The U.S. didn't want this to happen. But the second example I think is pertinent is that there are others in the region, not just the U.S., who are involved, and there are others who will take advantage of this for their own purposes. So, for example, the Houthi rebels who control much of Yemen are attacking commercial shipping in the Red Sea on the guise of supporting Gazans, but also to advance their legitimacy, their power in the area. Iran, which has serious domestic problems, is trying to use the regional conflict to say, well, we're the head of the axis of resistance. And that is leading to increased confrontations, not only between Iran and
this
Israel,
guy's on some liberal
but
bullshit.
Between the Iran-backed militia who are firing on U.S. personnel. So there's a kaleidoscope of actors I think we have to get in sight. And very quickly on your question, I think the Israel-Gaza conflict can definitely expand to be a regional war because of all of this. But also, don't forget that Russia's invasion of Ukraine could expand across Europe if Vladimir Putin continues to pursue that idea of an expansionist policy to knock back, quote, the West and NATO, as well as to try to control Kyiv.
Yeah. Well, the United Nations was effectively set up to try and prevent conflicts like this, and especially stopping them from spreading even further. But many critics of the United Nations have basically said that they're weak, they're paralysed by the major powers using vetoes constantly. Henry, what do you think needs to happen at the United Nations? You were talking about, the major powers coming together, but I mean, what is the likelihood of that actually happening? And even if you could get them in the same room, how openly are they going to be able to talk and actually find any solutions here?
Well, I think absolutely. We probably need also, reform UN a bit. But I think, maybe let's get a majority vote or something. That we cannot just have one country veto. For example, I mean that last time when China proposed the resolution for Palestinian-Israel conflict, U.S. vetoed that. So,
Sorry, Henry, to interrupt. Would China actually support that?
No, I think of course, there's when China was the rotating chair of UN Security Council, I think last November. I mean, there was quite a bit discussion on that, and China even called for a global summit on this crisis. So I think we need to do that. We need to really have a high-level talk and talk about how we can really reform that. But let's get to the consensus. I think it's important to have the high-level summit. Let's get the five head of the state of the UN
Scott,
Security Council.
Sorry to interrupt again, Henry. Scott, I can see you nodding away there. What do you make of what Henry has just had to say?
Well, I think on the specifics of the UN, I think you asked an interesting question, and that is, would China support getting rid of the veto power in the Security Council, which has not only been used by Russia to hold up the Security Council and by the U.S. to hold up the Security Council, but China would have to give up its own veto as well. So certainly UN reform has to involve all major powers. But on a wider issue, and I'd be interested in Henry's thoughts on this, where I think U.S.-China may be different from the other crises we talk about is it looks like there's a concerted effort by the Biden administration and by China to get back to the rules of the game, whether that's the rules of the game over Taiwan, the South China Sea, over economic issues, over technical issues, or technological issues, including the issue of espionage.
What do you mean by rules of the game?
Rules of the game. I think rules of the game, and I'll refer back to the other issues and then get back to China, is that with Russia and Ukraine, and in the sense of order across Europe, Vladimir Putin violated the rules of the game in a conflict which has been going on since 2014, including Russian occupation of part of the country, by launching.
But how did the conflict start, though? They didn't start at Crimea. That's the bullshit part of this narrative. Oh, he changed the rules of the game. No country, like, this is the thing about that. You don't have to like Putin or Russia, and there's lots of stuff, as I've talked about before, that the Russian government does that I think is fucking horrible. Okay? Like, that's undeniable. No country in the world would allow what America and NATO and the West has been doing in Ukraine. Certainly not America would allow. Like, look at Texas right now. Look at the conflict happening in Texas right now. This kind of like, or like Alberta. Like, Russia pumping resources into supporting separatism in Texas, leading to a big like crisis where people are out in the streets demanding that Texas be sovereign and free, and Russia comes in, brings their diplomats in there to pull Texas into this like pro-Russia, pro-Eastern camp, and then floods it full of guns, arming militias on Texas border where they're like fighting other Americans who don't want to be part of Texas. You know? Yeah, I know you're listening, Sinja. But I'm just saying, like, what country would allow that? Would America just sit back and say, like, well, nothing we can do about this? As Russia's pumping in Javelin missiles, weapons, arming Texas militias while they're fighting, the United States military, or they're fighting other citizens' militias on the outskirts of Texas that don't want to be part of this like secessionary movement. And Russia just pumps weapons and in fact trains these militias. You have the FSB going in to train these militias in Texas to fight in this civil war. And America, so apparently America is just supposed to say like, well, I guess there's nothing we can do about this. We're just going to hang back. We all know that America would not allow that. Yet most countries would allow it if it was America doing it because they would have no choice. But that's the whole thing. Like you're pointing out, Pelicans, great power countries, Russia's not going to do that. And Russia waited 10 years. Russia waited 10 years from the Euromaidan to invading Ukraine. How long do we think America would wait in that context? 1 year? 6 months? 3 months? Right away? Like, that's what we have to drop the fucking pretense here. No one would allow that. No one would allow this to happen right on their border. Their greatest ally, and what many people consider to be part of their nation, but their largest ally in the Soviet Union, who eventually just gets pulled away. All these fucking like Nazis and fascists and nationalists get promoted as like the sort of the founding father figures for this new nation. And they're supposed to just like they're supposed to just say, well, there's nothing we can do. Doesn't Ukraine have the right to not want to be absorbed by a failed state? But doesn't Russia have the right to not want the United States of America to pump in arms and training fascist militias and establish a military base directly on their border? Or in the case of Crimea, take over their largest military base and one of two warm water ports. Ukraine is the failed state. That's the whole point. Ukraine is the failed state. Yeah, that's it. You can criticize Russia all you want, but they've weathered this whole last 2 years of sanctions and all this stuff. Their economy is stronger than ever, even with all the sanctions. Whereas Ukraine now is this, like, it's been totally gutted. All its resources have been sold for parts. It's purely like all whatever social spending or social programs that once existed, gone. It's being just chopped up and delivered to the highest bidders, whatever Western demonic financial interests that are investing now in the rebuilding process so they can profit from it. That's not a state. Like, that's not a real country. No elections. Yeah. That's my point. When we talk about Putin's war and they invaded Crimea and they did this, like, the idea that, like, America would just sit back and allow that to happen has always been just laughable. Anyway.
A direct military invasion. That's crossing a red line. Hamas broke the rules of the game with the nature.
Who is this guy?
With the nature of its attack on Israel on October 7th, because it carried out the mass killing of civilians. And then, of course, Israel breaks the rules of the game on a day upon day upon day basis with its indiscriminate war. With the U.S. and China,
they broke the rules of the game by escaping from the concentration camp.
Including over Taiwan, including over military issues. There has been an effort in the past year on both sides, including a series of high-level meetings in Beijing, to say, look, let's step back from confrontation. Let's agree to live and let live over a specific issue over China and over broader issues like economic and trade issues.
Yeah. Henry, I know you wanted to jump in there. Can you just, first of all, before you respond to Scott, can you just reiterate, would China actually be prepared to give up its veto powers at the UN?
No, I'm not saying that. I think that have to discuss of a UN reform. I mean, that's not China, just one country. I mean, we have all the countries talk together. Well, I think on this Palestinian-Israel conflict, we need to have a high-level UN summit. Let's get all the top leaders to come to the table, and also, Security Council member countries at the table. I think one of the fundamental problem, what we see happen in the Russian-Ukrainian war and all across Taiwan Strait, or what we see at the Palestinian-Israel conflict, is basically the fundamental loss to trust of the major powers. And then the reason for that is that some countries are unilaterally pursue a lot of policy, when decouple, de-risk, and whatever. So that really created a lot of mistrust. And also, when the Cold War ended, I mean, also, there's a lot of things has not been happening. And so I think the mistrust of the major powers led to this regional conflict, led to this regional, destabilized. So basically, the root of the problem lies in the major countries. We have to really put all the major countries at the table and talk and get normalize their relation. That's the most important thing. Not view each other as enemy, rivalry. I mean, if the major power view each other as rivalry, enemy, and how can they really solve the regional problem where they have the profit war and whatever? That's really very bad.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the leaders that are basically going to be making any decisions going forward here. You've got Putin, Biden, potentially Trump later this year, Netanyahu, Xi, Kim Jong-un, all taking, front row seats and controlling what is going to happen next. Chris, I know you've been scathing about many of these leaders. Are they the types of leaders that would be able to de-escalate, to take the tension out of the room, so to speak, to bring us back from the brink of
trying to negotiate with the Minsk
III?
agreements, for example?
Well, some of them. I mean, Netanyahu has long lobbied for a war with Iran. The Israel lobby was a major factor in pushing the United States into Iraq, although it had nothing to do with the attacks of 9/11. I really think the core issue here is the expansion of U.S. militarism. Remember, we spend more on our military than what the next 9 or 10 countries combined, including China and Russia. I covered Eastern and Central Europe, including the fall of East Germany in 1989 as a reporter, and I was there when the promises were made to Gorbachev not to extend NATO beyond the borders of a unified Germany. WikiLeaks released a cable written by William Burns, who was the ambassador to Russia, now the head of the CIA, who said Ukraine is a red line. Essentially incorporating Ukraine into NATO is a provocation. It doesn't matter what your political
and even when you don't incorporate
is.
them, if you incorporate them into NATO in all but name, right? No, they're not in NATO. They're not going to be in NATO, but we are still going to overthrow the government or contribute to overthrowing the government in a coup, which is a fascist coup. That's what it was. Whether it had it did have some democratic legitimacy, we don't need to deny that, but it was a fascist coup. And it's not going to be part of NATO. We're simply going to install a pro-US, pro-EU government, anti-Russian government. We're going to fund a civil war. We're going to train fascist militias. No. Don't worry, though. They're not in NATO. We're just going to take over the largest military base in Crimea, But don't worry, they're not in NATO. Like, when you do it in all but name, they're de facto part of NATO. We're just going to ask them nicely to hold on to these nukes for us and point them at Moscow, but they're not part of NATO, though. Yeah, and then Russia's just supposed to say, "Oh, thank you, America. Thank you, you're so generous." And that's not even a pro-Russian argument. That's just like a fucking material analysis of the situation. That's what I've been saying all along the last 2 years. That is a legitimate security threat from Russia's perspective. The idea that's been like verboten to say that, I think, is insane. You don't have to like Russia to point that out. You don't have to like Putin to point that out. That's a legitimate security threat, which they did try to de-escalate without invading for 10 years. Again, there's a 10-year process before this invasion happened. There was many off-ramps to prevent this situation from happening. And the off-ramp was ignored each and every time.
That is unacceptable to the Russian people. I'm paraphrasing. And so that expansion of NATO up to Russia's borders, the inability on the United States to intervene, 16 years, 2.3 million Gazans living in a concentration camp. We have to put these things in context. The massive expansion of the U.S. military in the South China Sea. These are all
it just gets it on this.
And I fear that unless this expansionist policy that defines U.S. militarism is not put under control, I think that is the engine that is driving so much of the instability, the global instability. I really think, and there was no reason for the war in Ukraine. I mean, in fact, after a couple years of savage bloodletting, in which hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are killed and wounded and much of the country destroyed, you're going to end up with a negotiation that could have been done before.
Yeah,
Hedges
Scott,
gets
I
it.
can see you
and Hedges is not a pro. And look at this guy's mad already at those comments. Look at him; he's getting ready to respond. He's all upset. Hedges is absolutely correct, and Hedges is he's not a pro-Russian person. Even he recognizes this. Yeah, Russia's supposed to just look around at all its neighbors and former allies who now have governments subservient to NATO after the Western-backed regime change-ops that are being plundered by capital and used as staging grounds for further regime change-ops inside Russia and its neighbors. And apparently they're just supposed to go, "Oh, thank you," and just not respond to that in any way. That's the rules-based order, right? Those are Western values. We can do whatever the fuck we want. You can't defend yourselves. The moment you defend yourselves, that's the aggression. And then we just have to respond now. We were just minding our own business, and now we have to respond to the aggression. And that's the thing, in this new kind of multipolar situation, Russia's not putting up with this bullshit anymore. They're calling this bluff. Let's hear this. Look at this guy's smug, shit-eating grin. Now he's going to respond to this basic factual statement that Chris Hedges just made.
The way through what Chris was saying. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Can you just give your response, please?
The general response is that, stop using the U.S. as a punching bag or as a diversion. Yes.
Don't use the world's foremost imperialist power, who, again, all the things we've been describing, turning Ukraine into a glorified U.S. military base. Oh, stop using that as a distraction. The world's greatest imperialist power with the 800 military bases around the world. Fuck off, man.
The U.S. and its military are to blame for a lot of what is going on, such as the 2003 war in Iraq. But it wasn't the U.S. military that invaded Ukraine and continues to attack Ukraine on a daily basis. That was Vladimir Putin. It wasn't the U.S. that attacked Israel.
Just completely ignored everything.
Gaza. That's Hamas and Israel that are involved.
Completely ignored everything about the argument.
If you just simply shout about U.S. militarism, you forget the fact that this is a very complex system.
Oh, it's complex.
Such as the complex system in China.
Pathetic.
And you rule out the possibility that the U.S. and China can find a way forward.
This man's making Chris Hedges look like a Marxist-Leninist. I hate this bullshit. I hate this man.
Simply shaking your fist and saying, well, Washington's always going to be the bad guy. It's too simplistic and it doesn't help us as analysts.
Yeah. Okay.
Finally, let me just say, Scott, I don't think that Washington's always the bad guy, but I spent 20 years on the outer reaches of empire covering U.S. militarism and proxy wars in Latin America and everywhere else. And there is no control anymore. It's a state within a state. And yes,
state.
Certainly there are other actors.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry, Chris. You're a good reporter, but as an analyst in 2023-24, you're giving up the job of reporting on a daily basis, where this is not just angels versus devils.
No,
there are good people and there are bad people.
I did not say it was. It's not angels versus devils. I'm no defender of Vladimir Putin, and what he committed was a war crime. But I think not to acknowledge that he was baited and provoked, it doesn't defend what he does.
He was not baited. He was not baited. He was not baited and provoked. And you just defended Vladimir Putin by using that inaccurate assessment. That's what I mean.
Man, this guy.
I was there in Eastern, and I covered it. I was there as a reporter. I watched the whole process.
This smug prick.
I strongly
I'm so mad at this guy.
We're going to have to leave it there. We really do appreciate you.
Putin bad, sir. Sir. Putin bad. Please, sir. Look at this guy. Look at this guy's face. Oh my God. Please just say Putin bad. This smug prick. I'm so annoyed at this segment. I guess it's good content. It's, I don't know that we got a lot out of it, but man, I'm actually mad now. Yeah, you're defending the American empire. You're worse than defending Putin. Completely ignoring America's role in that. That's just, I don't even know how to describe that. That's worse than having your head in the sand. That's just ignoring basic reality. Ignoring the role that the America played in the Ukraine conflict. And like Hedges was pointing out, funding the Ukraine conflict for the last 2 years only to end up in a worse position that Ukraine was in previously. Don't say America bad, say Putin bad. It's complex. It's nuanced. America was bad one time with the Rock, okay? That was the one time America was bad. Just baby brain. You're a baby. This man is a baby. He has the mind of an infant. He has the mind of a child. A childlike understanding. Oh. I just should have asked this asshole who blew up Nord Stream. Well, who blew up Nord Stream were this team of Ukrainian commandos. So somehow the only Ukrainian commandos that aren't funded by the U.S., actually. So we found somehow the only group of Ukrainian military guys not funded and trained by the US to do it. They were the ones that did it. Like, do you actually believe that? Do you actually believe that, sir? Oh, that's a great question, GMO Radio. I wonder what he was saying about Iraq when it was actually happening. That's a great question. Look at his face, too. He's doing the DreamWorks face. I just exposed Chris Hedges as being a Putin-loving tanky. Man. Ukraine supporters always say that if Putin was provoked by the US into invading, then you're apologizing for Putin's actions. Like, it's just what... It's just denying a just basic reality. It's just not denying basic facts about that situation and how it happened. Oh. I'm genuinely mad at that segment. Even the fucking Pope said we provoked Russia. And again, it's not just like Chris Hedges. Look at everyone around the world. Look at everyone in a non-Western country and what they have to say about it. I.e. the vast majority of the world's population. Everyone fucking knows that America provoked that conflict. It's not controversial to say that. It's not apologizing for Russia. It's not ideological. It's not like every single person, not in Canada, the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, France, wherever. Everyone outside those countries is like, yeah, of course they provoked it. It's just like common knowledge. It's just common sense outside of the NATO propaganda sphere. This man should be in jail. I'm so annoyed. Funny how it's always inconvenient for the US to add context to geopolitics. Yeah, exactly. Don't try to add context to this. It's black, and he's saying it's not just angels and demons, but yet at the same time he's saying, no, this is black and white. This is black and white. Putin bad, Ukraine good. America just had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Like, that's delusional. That's absolutely delusional. Mr. Hedges, sir, it's not just angels and demons, black and white. And he's literally saying the situation, black and white, no nuance. Yeah, totally incoherent, totally contradictory. I hate that. Well, that's the thing. It's phony nuance bullshit, crowd babes, because like when you actually inject nuance into that conversation, like the Euromaidan and the war, the civil war in Eastern Ukraine and Azov Battalion and all these right-wing factors and genocide apologists, Holocaust apologists in Ukraine. And the CIA, the role that they played, and NATO and the role that they played. That's nuance. That's adding nuance into the conversation. They're like, no nuance. No nuance. But then when you talk about like Israel, Palestine, oh, it's so nuanced. Oh, we've got to be nuanced. We can't just have a black and white view of this. It's the hate and anger and rage behind the smiles and phony politeness that I hate the most. Yeah. God damn. Oh, it's so complicated. When Russia, Ukraine, not complicated. Nope. Vladimir Putin's just evil. He's like an evil G.I. Joe villain, and he just woke up one day and was like, I will invade Ukraine today. I don't like the Ukraine. I'm invading Ukraine. Because I think it's cool. That's what this guy thinks. That's what this man thinks happened. Again, everyone outside of the NATO propaganda sphere, like Carrier Wave was saying, everyone understands exactly what happened in this situation. It's Putin's expanding his empire. It's Russian imperialism. Hello, Onyx. That's right. My good friend Cory Booker. You should come on the show sometime. We're such good pals. It'd be good if you came on the show. Oh, it's that chauvinist mentality. It's that American chauvinist mentality. And this guy gets to like lecture at the school in the UK. Like, what the fuck?
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Hello, Majority Report. Welcome. Hello. Thank you for the raid from our friends at Majority Report. It's great to see you. Sam Sater, what a fucking nightmare. Happy to have you today. Thank you for joining us. Welcome in. Please smash the follow button. I'm Rob. It's nice to see you. I'm glad that you could be here. I'm glad that you could be here. And, you know, you're in luck because right now is the time that I'm politely asking the community if they can support this channel. So you came here at just the right time. Everyone's favorite time. Because as you can see, I am at 6 out of 35 subs for the day. We're trying to make the little number go up at the bottom of the screen. If you can, folks, if you were here previously, if you're just joining the stream, if you're here for the first time, if you're a long-time listener or chatter or viewer, please, if you can, support this stream, subscribe to TRRS. It's $4.99 per month. The best emotes, the best community, the best channel on this entire platform. And look at this button as well. Look at that.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
So if you can, folks, thank you, Anon. Thank you, Anon, for the gifted sub. Very kind of you. If you can, please support this program, support the work that I do on here. I just watched this segment on Al Jazeera, and I'm fired up now. I'm fired up. Toby Keith died. I don't know. Is that a pack watch situation? I don't really know much about Toby Keith. How old? He can't be that old, is he?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Don't know shit about him. I take Lodane is celebrating this, so I take Lodane's word for it. He was the boot in your ass guy. Okay. Psycho-fascist anti-Muslim guy. Okay. Subscription Steve, thanks so much for the 26 months of Tier 1. Thank you, Subscription Steve. I appreciate that. So what do we say? We got 27 subs left to go. Piece of cake. Should be no problem.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Should be no problem. Kijiji Genie, thanks for the gifted sub as well. 26 to go now. Looking good. Everything's looking good.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Navi of Destiny, thanks for the 10 months of Tier 1. I appreciate that. Navi of Destiny, close to a hype train now. We got a hype train possibly leaving the station. 25 subs to go. Possible hype train. All kinds of great things going on here. Should have been a cowboy was such a banger, but fuck him so hard. I don't. It's a subculture that I really have never been a part of. Yeah, it was very sunny today, Sean. Very sunny.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I know country's popular in like Alberta. Like, I don't know if I would say if it was popular in Canada. Kijiji, thanks for another gifted sub as well. You've got to go to a rodeo to really experience America. I would actually enjoy that, probably. Maybe not as like a regular thing, but Very popular in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Another gifted sub could get this hype train to leave the station. I don't want to alarm anybody, but it's possible. And in terms of the leaderboards, we got Burgles leading the leaderboards right now for this month. We got Kijiji Genie at number 2. We got Crackle Bear at number 3. It's wide open now.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
It's wide open. Red Wizard, thank you for the gifted sub. Thank you, Red Wizard. And we do have a hype train happening. So remember, folks, it's now is the time. If you want to support this channel, now is the time to do it. If you can, subscribe. Like, look at this guy. This is not a guy that you want to subscribe to.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
You can gift subs. If you gift 5 subs or above, instantly rocket right up to the very tippy top of the elite tier of the Friendship Triangle system. That's Twitch's only 2-dimensional and triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down cloud tiered reward system. Spell check, thanks for the gifted sub. Thank you for that. Actual Karl Marx is coming here to say that I'm handsome. Thank you, actual Karl Marx. And Spellcheck gifted a sub to trans women. And we support trans women on this channel, and trans men, and non-binary people as well. Yeah, it should count as more than one, seriously. The number 1 name on Twitch. Yeah. That's good.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Oh, thank you, Lodane, for gifting us sub. That's very kind of you, Lodane. Rob supports the gooning. Gooners, rise up.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all
Risk
this.
Inverse, thank you very much for the gifted sub. Very, very kind of you, Risk Inverse, as well. And if you're going to gift subscriptions from this point on, I'm going to assume, and we're all going to assume, that you love gooning as well. If you subscribe over the next few minutes, that's a confirmation on your part that you think gooning is cool and you support it. The gooning goggles. Majority Report should be more active on Twitch. Yeah, it's like I don't really, because I guess their main thing is streaming to YouTube, right? But then they're also streaming here.
You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Joe, thank you very much for the gifted sub. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate that. Joe Gooner confirmed.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Gooning is cool, and I support it.
Thank you, Relic. Thanks for I don't even need to say it. Thanks for 22 months of Prime from Relic. Very close to the 2-year gold badge, Relic. Thank you for all the support. YouTube streaming is pretty much dead content. You know, one thing, because I'm trying to become bigger on TikTok as well, I'm wondering if I should shell out for Streamlabs Pro so I can start streaming to multiple platforms. I was thinking about starting to do some, like, TikTok streaming. I feel like that might be good to do. Does Majority Report do that as well? Now that I am a big-time TikTok influencer. Yes, I am going to do NPC streams. That's right. People can sexually objectify me even more than they already do on here. Instead of gang gang, I'll say goon goon or just goon gang. Goon gang. Goon gang. Goon gang. Monster energy drink, so good. TikTok lives get wild. Make sure you got some solid mods. Yeah, we're gonna have to wait till we go into that world. We're halfway. We're 32% of the way through level 3 of this hype train, folks. We're halfway to the goal. Halfway to the goal. If we got any more generous sub gifters that want to support this channel, now's the time to do that. If we've got anyone else that's a first-time viewer or maybe a lurker, someone that just came through one of the raids, someone who got brought here by the Twitch algorithm, now's the time. If you want to join this community, you want to support the channel, now's the time to do it. No, no one said cummies. No. Every $20 donation enters you into a raffle to decide Rob's next haircut. And honestly, for now, I think I'm sticking with this. I feel pretty good about this. Look at this. I'm like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon here. I'm pretty into it. I think I'm sticking with this for a while. You know? And he's getting into the moose zone? Maybe, yeah. Maybe. Folks, 30 seconds left. We got 30 seconds left. Can we get through? Can we get through to the next stage? Can we do this? I'm sure we can, probably. Maybe not.
You've just become an elite
member
my goodness. Of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh my goodness, risk inverse. Oh my lord. At the last, the buzzer beater. The buzzer beater from Risk Inverse. Risk Inverse, thank you so much for 5 gifted subs. That's really, really kind of you. I really appreciate it. I've never seen that. That was 1 second on the clock. That was 1 second on the clock. Real gooner. We got a real gooner on our hands. Goon gang. That's some skilled edging. Jesus. Jesus. Well, folks, now we're only 13 subs to go. We're only 13 subs away from the goal. We're in level 4 here. We got another couple minutes. Do we hear level 5? That's the question. Do you have any more generous chatters that can come through? Goon Gang, rise up. Only a mere measly 13 subs to go, folks, to get to the goal. That's so doable. That's so attainable. Any brave gooners willing to gift another 5 subs? Thank you, Kijiji.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Don't goon away this chance. Dr. Maggot, thanks so much for the gifted
You can
sub.
count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Chaos the Gardener as well. Thanks for the 3 gifted subs. And that's true, yes. Someone's pointing out. To those who are new to the Friendship Triangle, Rob's not telling the whole truth after a mere 28 subs. We hit the real goal, karaoke. I was doing a lot of singing, too. Lately. That is true. That is true. With 24 more subs, I'll sing a little song. But I'm focusing on the goal right now, but it's probably worth pointing out that that's a possibility as well, if that's something that you like to see. If that's something that you would enjoy. %, 61% of the way through level 4 of this scam train, folks. A few more gift subs could do it. A few more gift subs could get us ever so slightly closer to the goal and get through this level of the hype train. 1 minute to go. We don't need to leave it to the last minute. We don't need to leave it to a buzzer beater. That's totally not necessary. I get that we like the suspense and everything, but it's not necessary. We don't need to.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old
30
Rob
seconds to go.
Talk you through all this.
Ramuskin Red, thanks for 35 months tier 1s. 1 month away from the highly elite Pearl sub badge. Ramuskin Red, thank you.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old
Anon,
Rob
thank you
to,
for another
talk you
gifted
through all
sub.
this.
What you keep saying Scotty Barnes All-Star. What is the deal with that, GMO Radio? Is that like a thing? He wasn't announced on the reserves, though.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Did I miss something? Oh, nice. He made it on there because injuries. Well deserved. Well deserved. Anon, thank you for another gifted sub as well. Hell yeah. I'm so happy for Scotty Barnes. That's amazing. I don't think it's a Mickey Mouse All-Star selection. I think I was a little disappointed that he didn't make it, but the team is still there's no one on the All-Star team that I was like, what are they doing on there? Even Trae Young. Trae Young didn't make the All-Star team. Absolutely deserved. Trae Young's averaging 27 and 11. In what world is that not an All-Star campaign? And Scotty's been having a fantastic season. NBA players, top result on Scotty Barnes right now. NBA players with at least 1,000 points, 400 rebounds, 250 assists, 50 blocks, and 50 steals this season. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Scotty Barnes. Yeah, I saw Trey was the other replacement. He totally deserves to be there. Embiid obviously needed to be on there. Julius Randle, I guess, is the only one that's maybe a little bit iffy. Randle's really good, but I don't know. And the Knicks are really good, but I think Julius Randle over Trae Young is maybe a little bit dicey. And I think Julius Randle over Scotty is also dicey. Really, Scotty totally deserves to be an all-star this camp. The Raptors season has been just totally depressing. It's been horrid. Scotty Barnes has been absolutely fantastic. What a huge act. And it's his third year, The second year was really rough. We didn't make a regression, but didn't really make much of a leap. And then for his third year, then to come in and put an all-star campaign, fantastic. So happy for Scotty Barnes. Hopefully they can build around him successfully and not have another depressing season, because this one has been awful. Yeah, I like that Knicks team too. I just love seeing OG getting all the love. To like talk about a deserving thing, right? All the people all of a sudden paying attention. This guy's really good, and it's like, yeah, he is really good. Is there a public vote for the selection? Well, the public votes on the starters. The public votes for the starters, but then the coaches and vote on the reserves. But I don't think in the starters there's anyone that like it doesn't deserve it. We got 15 more minutes of discourse. Let's just do 15 more minutes of discourse. I had another clip that I wanted to take a look at. I don't want to just like punt the rest of the episode or something.
Rob to talk you through all this.
Hey, Sunny Sola, thanks for the 2 gifted subs. Thanks, Sunny Sola. Really appreciate that. And now only 4 subs away. I know the hype train's over. But we're only 4 subs away from the goal. Is the discourse going to be subversive? Oh, you know it. You know it, baby. I think this is going to be a good clip because it really identifies the kind of double standard that happens in our media when it comes to Israel and when it comes to Ukraine. That is nothing, Sean. It's nothing at all. Like that's barely anything. So this is Steve Headley, former RMT Union Assistant General Secretary. Gets kicked off. Kicked out by Talk TV hosts. Let's look at this clip.
The government are holding
They haven't got any money.
Well,
they've got
plenty of money for wars. They've got plenty of money to give Ukraine. They've got plenty of money to give Israel. They could sell an arms to Israel. There you are.
Stupid, Steve. Are you completely nuts?
Well,
I mean, you come in here dressed in a scarf with a. I
Palestinian
support.
Scarf.
Do you actually
really
support the Palestinians?
Absolutely.
You think that's a really
What about Hamas? What about Hamas?
I defend the Palestinians' right to defend themselves.
Yeah. Do you say Hamas it was a resistance?
Sorry, I believe the Israeli government are a fascist government. I
What
believe
about Hamas?
Are a terrorist
government.
Hang on. I know you want to hit me.
I'm not going to hit you,
No,
James.
you're not. You're absolutely right.
Not at all. Not at
You
all.
equate Hamas with Israel.
You're a silly little man.
Well,
You're a silly little man.
as much
A
as you
genocide enabler. A genocide enabler,
You
James.
talk crap. That's
You're a
all you can
genocide
spout.
enabler.
All you can spout is that crap, isn't it? Genocide.
That's it. You can't do the but Hamas thing. When you support the IDF, you support Israel. You can't say but Hamas. Surely you can't say that. Like, you support Israel. You support genocide. You support terrorism. That's the amazing thing. You can't say, I support the Palestinians' right to defend themselves. It's not controversial to go on and say, I support Israel's right to defend itself. That's in fact the words, that's the mantra that everyone must agree. Well, we must agree that Israel has a right to defend itself. And when you go on wearing a kufaya, which is like not controversial, but they seem to suggest that it's like some terrorism thing now. And you say, I support Palestinians' right to defend themselves. And they freak the fuck out. They lose their minds. They lose their minds. Like, that's what I don't get about this. Like, it's not, you don't have to agree with that. And I think if you support Israel or you support the IDF, you support terrorism, you support genocide. Like I've said before, the IDF, Israel, they commit way more violence, way more terrorism, way more barbarity, attacks on children, attacks on babies, attacks on civilians than Hamas ever could in a lifetime. By many stretches, like by many orders of magnitude, Israel is responsible for far, far more violence, murder, terror. And when you go on and say, I support Palestinians' right to defend themselves, people lose their fucking minds. And that's what I don't get. It's like, if we're talking about the media, where we're supposed to be able to have a wide range of opinion, why is it so outrageous? Even when you talk about, ooh, Hamas, ooh. Even if you're going to sit down in one of these shows and say, like, yeah, I support Hamas. Why is that not a legitimate opinion? Why is it legitimate to support Israel, support the IDF, who commit far more violence than Hamas? Far more. But if you say like, I support Palestinians' right to defend themselves, saying nothing about Hamas, you can't. It's unacceptable. It's not only a statement that people don't agree with. It's unacceptable. You can't say that. I'm going to get and walk out of this show. I'm going to call you all kinds of names. I'm going to threaten you with violence for even suggesting this. And he's absolutely right. You're genocide enablers. You can't. Hamas is not a gotcha. Oh, you support Hamas. You support mass murder and genocide. You support 10,000 children being murdered. You support Palestinian babies being murdered. You know, that's not an insult. You can't use that against me or anyone else or what's his name? Steve Headley. You can't do that anymore.
From the river to the sea, genocide.
The government.
Yeah, you support babies. All this shit about babies, like, oh, the Hamas, they beheaded babies. They cut babies out of pregnant women. Well, that turns out that was all lies. What's not lies, though, is Israel killing dozens, hundreds, thousands of babies and little kids. And you can go on TV and you can support that. And that's not a problem. It's not a problem to go on TV and say, I support Israel's right to kill thousands of little kids. And no one seems to really care. No one minds. Let me see if I can find this clip. Here's the list of names we know from the more than 11,500. I'm going to repeat that. The names we know, these are confirmed. The names we know from the more than 11,500 Palestinian children killed during Israel's continuing war on Gaza. And the first 30 seconds of this clip are all babies. Not toddlers, not little kids, not 8-year-olds, not 9-year-olds, babies, 0 years old. Babies. These are all babies. Still. If you support Israel, you support murdering babies. Like, there's just no other way to describe it. If you support Israel, if you support the IDF, if you say Israel has a right to defend itself, you support the mass murder of little babies. Like, there's simply no other way to describe that. We're just getting into the 1-year-olds now. So there's no but Hamas, but October 7th. No. Nothing that Hamas has ever done comes close to this. Nothing. That doesn't mean that it's perfect, that civilians haven't been hurt, or even that little children haven't been hurt, which is horrifying. But when you say Israel has a right to defend itself, this is what you support. They instigated and got mad when there was a retaliation. Very similar to another geopolitical incident that we were just talking about a few minutes ago. This is the Western playbook. Babies are a prime target because they want to reduce the population. That's why the inciting Hasbara was focused on imaginary babies. Now we're into the 3-year-olds. This video is 7 minutes long. Yeah, GMO Radio and Red Wizard, it's an everyday scarf for me as well, too. That's never going to change either. And again, this man says, I support Palestinians' right to defend themselves, and that's an unacceptable opinion. Unacceptable. And we interview like representatives of the Israeli government that go on and defend this and say, we don't want to do this. This is whatever all the excuses are. We're taking care not to kill anybody. Totally okay to do. Totally okay to go on TV and say that. This video is like not even half over. We've asked the soldiers to stop doing TikTok dances while committing war crimes on film, but Hamas has tunnels, so we have to allow it. Like, again, if you go on TV or in your personal life or whatever, and you say Israel has a right to defend itself, this is what you believe in. This is what you support. Pro-Israel people love to scream that Israel has a right to defend itself and Jewish people have a right to exist, as if their rights supersede anyone else's. Well, that's it. It's like they have these rights, but Palestinians don't have those rights. They don't have a right to defend themselves. Right? They don't have a right to defend themselves with sanctions and boycotts. They don't have a right to defend themselves by non-violently marching to the Gaza prison fence. They certainly don't have a right to defend themselves by creating homemade rockets, because they don't have billions of dollars of aid funding their military. So the only force of like armed resistance that they have is homemade rockets that they launch into Israel. They don't have that right. They don't have the right to break out of the concentration camp. They don't have the right to go after IDF checkpoints. There's nothing they can do except lie down and submit and give up. That's what they have the right to do, according to Zionists, according to pro-Israel people. And look at the reaction when that guy wears the kufiya on TV and says, I support Palestinians' right to defend themselves. Look how angry they get. Curious that the people that don't share U.S. interests never have rights. Exactly. It's interesting how that works, isn't it? That clip was just maddening because just look how angry they get. They get so angry at the idea that you could say, I support Palestinians' right to defend themselves. It's so upset. If Israel was genociding a white population, would the reaction be different? I would say no, Kijiji, because we've seen how the whole concept of whiteness can shift and change depending on who we're talking about, right? It's like Russians are white as well, but Russians don't kind of count. They're the Eastern, they're the barbarians. They're the swarthy hordes, right? This concept of definition of who counts as being white and who doesn't can shift and change depending on the situation. But obviously the whiteness of Ukrainians does, that's the whole thing. It's they're not like the Russians, even though they're the same people. Oh, they're not, the Ukrainians are not, they have Western values. That's the code words for they're white and the Russians aren't. There. So if you support Israel, if you support the IDF, that's who you support. You support the mass murder of little kids. Sorry. Sorry to be the one to tell you. Way back when Benjamin Franklin made an article that we must defend the colonies from the non-white hordes like the Germans, whiteness is ever shifting, or the Italians or the Irish, right? And then eventually maybe they get let into the club. I actually do support discriminating against Germans, but you know, that's neither here nor there. That has nothing to do with the concept of whiteness. Thank you for tuning into the program today, folks. I got to go pick up my kid from school. We are a mere 4 subs away from the goal. If you can, we got another 5 minutes. 4 subs. Can we do it? I feel like we can. I feel like we can do it. 213 viewers, a mere measly minor 4 subs to go. Who's going to be the hero? Who is going to be the hero? Lodan, I'll read your comment. I'm sorry. And Dr. Maggot as well. I skipped a couple of comments. Remind everyone of this fact that is incredibly analogous to the political reality of the Palestinian armed resistance. An overwhelming majority of the rockets that Hamas fires are cobbled together using scraps of Israeli bombs. Yeah, and most of them have no intention of actually even doing any damage. It's purely symbolic. Lodane says it's easier for Americans to accept the concept of brown terrorists, not white. They're lone gunmen. They're unstable individuals. Yeah, even though the fact that most terrorism is literally being promoted by the FBI. All the terrorists, all the brown terrorists that the FBI arrests there's an FBI agent on Discord being like, hey, you should do terrorism. You should join ISIS. You should do terrorism. And they're like, I don't really know. And they're like, no, come on, do it. Do it. Come on, support ISIS. Come on. And eventually the person's like, yeah, I guess maybe I can think about that. They're like, arrest. Give themselves a nice award. Give themselves a nice pat on the back. Yeah, I saw the whole story about the Australian Friends recruiting an autistic 13-year-old. And then the moment they turn 14, they're arrested. That's our job done.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Attack thwarted. Dr. Maggot, thanks for another gifted sub. I appreciate it, Dr. Maggot. Thank you. Entrapment is allowed for me, but not for thee. It's funny how those work, isn't it? A mere 3 subs to go, folks. We're so close. We're just painfully close. We're achingly close. What about if I do this? 1 minute to go.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Amazing Bird Show. Thank you for the gifted sub.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.